Hi, everyone. My name is Erin. I'm with Commit and Conquer, and I'm really excited to be a part of this program of sharing some content around heavy and hard topics. I know I personally searched the internet in a season of my marriage looking for answers to questions that I had, and I hope that this presentation and some of the information I'm bringing you can help put you at ease and give you some hope. And so, this content is really going to be based around, can this marriage be saved? And I really believe that you have to ask a lot of questions to know the answer. But in general, the answer is yes. You have to be willing to ask the right questions. You have to be willing to do the work. But with those two things in mind, you're here because you're looking for answers. So this is a great first step. So let's jump right in and look at the main key questions we want to ask about how we can move our marriages forward from the gritty, tough, unhealthy, potentially toxic state that they're currently in to a fulfilled, robust, blooming relationship as God intended them to be. So when we talk about relationships, it's always two people, right? It requires, whether we're talking about a parental relationship or specifically maybe just talking with your children and how that dynamic and that relationship works, friends, and of course the ultimate relationship here on earth being our spouses, the ones with our partners. And so you have to realize that you're only 50% of of the relationship, but you can have a huge impact and be causing 99% of the pain and turmoil in that relationship. So you have to be willing to ask yourself, am I going to take personal responsibility for my part in the marriage? And this is incredibly important because if you don't see yourself as being part of the problem, then you're certainly not going to be able to be part of the solution. So many times when we get in these difficult spots within our marriage, we have a tendency to start blaming our spouse specifically for all the problems that are going on. And that's just not true. Those are lies from the enemy, and they're also coping strategies from our past, baggage that we bring in because we don't really want to face that we have been actually the ones to make a mistake. And in reality, both partners are bringing mistakes and bad behaviors into the marriage, and we have to learn how to process and work through them with open communication so that we can grow in our marriage. And so you have to first start by what we like to say, draw the circle around yourself and say, what can I do within my circle? What can I control about myself? And so here's some great questions to ask yourself. Where have I shut down emotionally? So have I decided that I'm just going to get by to get by? I'm no longer going to engage in this relationship. So I'm no longer putting out emotional energy to bid for my spouse, to bid for connection. Are you doing that? Your spouse is probably feeling that if you feel the answer to that question is yes. Asking yourself, am I forgiving? Am I pursuing connection? Forgiveness is so important. This is one that I don't think people realize, that we have to forgive constantly. Small little things, little hurts that we've done, not showing up for our partner. We, are asking our spouse to do something for us and then we just totally forget. Or it could be something big like betrayal. All along the way, we need to ask and grant for forgiveness. And if you hold on to unsettled hurts, it can turn into a bitter root that will destroy your relationship. So, how do you overcome that? Forgive frequently. And forgiveness is an action, something we can talk more on at a later date. This last point is, what wounds am I bringing into the marriage? I touched on that briefly, but realistically, it takes about 10 years to rewire the neural pathways in our brain. And so, knowing that whatever relationship you were in before your current marriage, or maybe your family dynamics from how the way your parents raised you, you're bringing that into your current marriage. And without you maybe even knowing it, subconsciously, you're laying down expectations or past hurts on your spouse that your spouse has not perpetrated. And when you do that, you're putting them at a disadvantage to be able to overcome. So ask yourself, am I taking personal responsibility for my part? Question number 2, do we both want to rebuild, or am I dragging dead weight? I can tell you for a fact that every spouse is going to have to carry the weight of their partner at some point in their marriage. It could be due to health. issues. It could be due to financial strain. It could be due to just spiritual apathy, or somebody who ultimately has just checked out of the relationship. I can tell you one person can make a huge impact in restoring a relationship, to getting the opportunity, getting that other person's heart to soften, to be willing to listen to the other person and potentially work on their marriage. So your actions are incredibly important in bringing back a wayward spouse, someone who just has decided, maybe I'm done with this. And that's the reason they're acting like a dead weight, no longer participating in the marriage. But sometimes it could be just because they have lost hope and they don't know which way to turn. And so having open-ended questions are really going to help you bring that person back into communication with you. So asking, do you want this marriage to work? Even, what does a new marriage look like for you? Are we willing to do the hard work? Are you willing to show up? And I think many times people think, I'm just going back to the old relationship that I had. And that feels very um, uh, claustrophobic. They can feel trapped, like it's a prison. So telling them, I don't want the old relationship we had, and I don't think you do either. Let's work hard for something new, a new marriage. That paves the way for both parties entering in and putting in equal parts, and not so much that they're going back to the old habits and the old ways. And then asking, what does rebuilding look like? You can come with some ideas and some solutions, but see what your partner has to say and take that constructive criticism to heart without getting defensive. These are the first steps that you can take into being able to move your relationship from it's totally over to it's going to take off, and we're going to be able to have the marriage that we've always wanted, with a lot of romance and love and compassion and support and empathy. And then lastly, here we have to ask ourselves, are we willing to change how we've been doing it? And I touched on this briefly on the previous slide, but you have to identify your old habits, the old baggage, and unlearn it. No longer can you say, well, this is just who I am. When you say those words, you're relegating yourself to being emotionally immature, and your spouse is going to outgrow you. Realistically, your friends will outgrow you. Even workplace relationships. So this is an important habit to develop in all areas of our life, which is to unlearn the old, to bring in the new. You have to have a sense of humility, because you're going to have to adopt new tools to be able to get yourself out of the mess you're in. And so you have to invite people and resources into those areas to be able to grow. We are not made to be operating in isolation, both as individuals and even as couples. You need to get around other healthier individuals who have walked through challenges before and can point you down the right direction in growing out of the current unhealthiness that your marriage is in due to your past behaviors. And then lastly here, are we willing to fight differently than we had before? And that could be both fighting for your marriage or fighting with each other. You're going to have disagreements, but it's not about being right or wrong. All of life is really lived in the gray area, and it's starting to be able to hear your spouse out without taking it personally, so that you don't fight the same way you were before, but you're also showing up and fighting for your marriage differently than the way you did before. So none of this happens by choice or by chance. It's all by choice. I always say love is an action, it's not a feeling. And that's incredibly important, because love is shown over time when we continue to sacrifice our needs for the betterment of our family, for our spouses. So the question back to, slide number 1, which was, can your marriage be saved? And the answer is absolutely yes, but only if you're willing to get honest about where it is right now. And so get with your spouse, get some time, sit down, talk about these things, and start seeking out resources and different coaching or counseling sources to be able to commit to the process, and you can conquer the chaos that's within your marriage. I look forward to speaking with you all more. I will have more content coming out in the near future. If you need something, or you want to talk, or want to leave a comment, you can subscribe and leave a comment below. Thanks.